Hello, everybody. Well, what a crazy 3 months it's been. Welcome
Mm-hmm.
to, and I was going to say, we want to welcome you to the bookshelf, episode 2. I'm your host, Woody, and with me is.
Dreamer girl.
So, before we get into our topic, I want to introduce a very special guest.
Who will be a
And
new member.
will you guys welcome? Will you guys welcome the Lone Gamer?
Hello. How you guys doing tonight?
Fantastic, thank you. So,
Awesome.
yeah, Lone Gamer, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, as the name implies, I'm a gamer when I have the free time. I also like to read. I like to collect stuff. I also like to draw when I have the chance.
Hmm.
Fantastic, fantastic. So, before would you tell us a little bit about some of your favorites out of each of those categories? Top couple games, top couple stuff you collect, that sort of thing.
Okay, well, games is simple for me. I love the Legend of Zelda series. I love the Metroid series. And just today, I acquired the new Monster Hunter Wilds game, and that is so much fun.
Cool,
I mean,
cool.
who wouldn't want to ride around in the wild on a giant chicken?
That is true.
Now, collecting stuff, I like collecting Transformers, model kits, typical nerdy stuff. Um, books. It, thanks to my lovely friend Dreamer Girl, she got me back into reading after can't even remember the last time I read a book.
And
I mean,
don't worry, guys, it wasn't. And don't worry, guys, it wasn't my first ABCs.
No, that would have been you.
I walked
and
into
she
that one.
actually helped me pick the first book I picked up.
I did. I wasn't going
And
to let you pick up something that was bad.
No, no.
I mean, look, I know that she'd never let you read A Court of Thorns and Roses,
Ugh. To
or
all those
even
people, though, I have to preface that by to all the people who like that series, that's wonderful and fabulous for you, but it wasn't my cup of tea.
or Twilight.
Again, to all the people who like Twilight and still are obsessed with it, that's great for you. And we can have a conversation about it if you really want to. I'm Team Jacob, by the way. So if anybody wants to have a discussion about that, great. But be prepared that I will bash the heck out of Edward.
Yes.
And then when it comes to drawing, I kind of like drawing like either buildings or just scenery stuff. I can't draw people to save my working life. The best I can
Okay.
do with a person is a stick figure.
I didn't know you could draw, so I learned something new today.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Maybe one day, Gamer will actually see some of your artwork on stream.
Yeah, maybe.
That'd be an interesting thing. The Gamers Gallery.
Ooh, I like the
That
sound of that.
that does have a really good ring to it.
I like that.
But anyway, I think I see the eyes of the Ranger are upon us.
Look at us.
So I think that means it's time that we get into our discussion of this week, and that is we are talking about the ever classic Walker Texas Ranger from 1993.
I mean, you can't get any better than that one.
And I was only 2 years old when that show came out.
Now I feel
Yep.
old.
Yeah, well, what can we say about Walker Texas Ranger? I mean, it stars the veritable man of action, Chuck Norris, as U.S. Texas Ranger Cordell Walker.
And then you have Trevette, his partner, Mr. I like to walk in, a flashy, Speedo.
Yeah.
Then you
But that
have
was only-
Alex, who's the DA, who is basically a badass in the shoulder padded, suit.
And
who
his-
we all know that they have a thing.
The will they, won't they relationship that they had throughout the season.
Kiss already. Literally, I was watching an episode the other night, and I'm like, for the love of all this good and holy, just make out already. Like, nobody is going to judge you. You're a Texas Ranger. She's a district attorney. It's okay.
And the
Just
thing
watch
is-
out for the shoulder pads.
But and the thing is, you've also got the CD,
Yes.
and of course,
his friend, who runs the what is it, the bar, or it's like
yeah. He's the bar. He's the guy that had Chuck's job before Chuck took it over. He's the guy in the know.
Could he have roundhouse kicked people to the face though?
No. He's CD is the one that, to quote the song, walked around with the big iron on his hip.
And then you have Uncle Ray.
Yes.
Who is always giving good advice.
He was Chuck's. So if you think about it, Chuck kind of had two mentors throughout the series, didn't he?
He did. He had CD and he had Uncle Ray. Yeah,
to help him when he was struggling with problems.
Mm-hmm. And then he kind of mentored Trevette.
Yeah, well, if you think about it this way, it was a sort of modern Western, with Cordell Walker being the epitome of the old style Western sheriff.
Mm-hmm.
He does things by the book, by the law, and the badge.
I wouldn't say by the book. I mean, I don't think that the Ranger book says roundhouse kick people to the face and the crotch. I don't think that that's written in there. I also don't think it's written in the book that you're supposed to go off and, collect an entire cartel and then bring them back and say, oh, it's just some dirty laundry I'm returning. So I don't think that that's in the book either. I also would like to argue that the mullet also isn't in the book.
Add his own pages to the book, so.
Are you going to be Helen? Sorry, Dreamer. Let me ask you: are you going to be the person to tell Chuck Norris he can't? Are you going to be the person to tell Chuck Norris?
No, that's Alex's job.
Yeah, but but you see the glares he gives out. She's like, "Ooh, okay, I think we'll
just look
mosey on out of here."
It's like as long as the cartel member he's knocked out in the middle of a bar in Mexico and dragged back over the border is still breathing by the time they interrogate them and can testify. I mean, what's the problem?
And then you notice how he has two different trucks throughout the entire, about two different trucks, maybe more than that. I haven't finished the series as watching it as an adult versus a kid, because I would sit and watch it with my grandpa because he was obsessed with Walker Texas Ranger. That was his. He had to watch it.
But the point I was going back to is, if you think about it this way, Walker is the old-fashioned Western sheriff.
Yes.
He is the law. He's coming in. He's laying the law down. He does things by the book, and he does things the old-fashioned method. He's out on the street. He's rounding up the bad guys. He's bringing them in for questioning, and then handing them over to Alex for to take them to court.
It's very true. And then you have Trevette, who's kind of more new age, like computers and trackers
all about,
and
he's the computers, he's the technology guy, he's looking at new methods of dealing with crime, and he's the one checking, using his big MacBook laptop, from 1992 to check the speed cameras in the area to get the license plate of that van that went past.
Now the question, Lone Gamer, is which one would you want to be the partner of? Would you want to be the partner of Walker, or would you rather be the partner of Trevette?
As much as a lot of people rely on technology these days, I'm sorry, some people need a good old-fashioned butt whooping.
A good old-fashioned roundhouse kick to the face?
That too.
So you're following Chuck Norris as he kicks in the door to a warehouse where the cartel are holed up. You're getting into a fist fight and a shootout with them.
Yeah, and I'm the one eating popcorn in the background.
While Chuck Norris is pulling out his Western revolver, popping caps, and then those that are still standing, he gets into a fist fight with.
Yep.
And he's rolling out of the way as they're shooting at him.
Yep.
I mean, you really can't. It's like, I almost want to sit during one episode and count how many times he roundhouse kicks people to the face or to the crotch.
Yeah.
But if you think about it as well, Uncle Ray is that old style Western character as well.
Well, yeah, because he taught Chuck, he taught Cordell how to, rely on his Native American heritage and how to track people the old-fashioned way, and how to, listen to his instincts and, trust his gut.
Ride the horse, lasso.
I mean, Uncle Ray is the person who would have taught him to be more old school in a new technology age. Because if you think about it, in 93, 94, computers were starting to become a thing. Cell phones were becoming slightly a thing. And, still not everybody had one. But, you're sitting here thinking, in a technology boom, people were relying more on technology, where, Cordell Walker obviously coming, he's a little bit more old school. He did have Uncle Ray teach him how to trust his instincts, and, they didn't have the newfangled technology of learning how to track things. They would have used compasses and, looking to see what way is a horse going, what way is a person going. You use like their scent, because you've seen him time and time again picking up dirt and like smelling it. And I'm like, well, does that dirt smell wonderful, Walker? Like, what does that smell like?
But you've also got to factor in the fact, that Walker was also in the Marine Corps during the Vietnam War.
That's very true, which is where he would have learned how to fight. He would have also learned how to shoot. He would have learned how to track. He would have learned how to sleep under the stars, get his own food. He would have, learned all of those skills being in the Marine Corps.
Or at least, added to the list of skills he probably picked up from his Uncle Ray, when he was a teenager. Because if you think about it, in the pilot, it turns out that, his parents were killed when he was a young boy.
Yes. That's when you find out what his backstory was.
And his Uncle Ray looked after him ever since.
Well, yeah, because he talks about how he tells, the one girl that, he witnessed his dad try to defend his mother. Yeah. And, his dad died, and then his mom dies right in front of him.
And, you think, Uncle Ray, was teaching Walker, everything he knew from, throughout his teenage years.
I mean, what do you think about all of that?
Yeah.
Bear in mind, it's been a while since I've seen the very beginning of the show.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
But I mean, to think about that, he sat and he witnessed his parents literally get murdered in front of him.
At that young of an age, that would have probably scarred him heavily.
It probably did, but you have to think he had, Uncle Ray to, be there to guide him. And then, he probably afterwards, after high school, he joined the Marines. He had the Marines to kind of also guide him and be kind of like more found family. I kind of have discovered that, he is more found family than actual.
Well, if you think about it as well, from what we learned throughout the series, he lost his family, Uncle Ray and the Marines were sort of like the things guiding him from a sort of troubled troubled late childhood and teenage years, Because if you think about it in the pilot, he, when he's talking to that young girl, he became angry after his parents died, he lashed out, he did a lot of bad things.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems that Uncle Ray and the Marines were the sort of thing to put him back on the
right track.
I would also argue that, becoming a Texas Ranger and probably some of CD's, mentoring, CD probably also helped get him more on the right track as well.
More.
Yeah, but Uncle Ray and the Marines were that sort of guiding him to the path, giving him this, an outlet for his anger, his problems, his rage, his thirst for revenge, then obviously he leaves the Marines, he joins the Texas, he joins the police after Vietnam. He meets he's you think about it, he'd be in his late teens, early 20s when he leaves Vietnam. He'd be a rookie cop, wouldn't he?
Mm-hmm.
That's when you got characters like CD taking him under their wing, giving him the foundations, they, mentoring him in their ways.
Yes.
Along with Uncle Ray as well.
Yes, to keep him grounded and remind him where he came from.
So, then obviously at that point he's in his 20s, he joins the Texas Rangers, he's, now he's the man he's become at the start of the series.
Now, I do have a question for the Lone Gamer.
Uh-huh.
Do you think that him and Alex would end up together?
I would think so.
I think that they do too, if I remember correctly. It's been a long time since I saw like the ending of, the show, because, the show ends and then, they had the movie, and it's been a long time since I saw either of those.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because the Walker Texas Ranger actually finished in like 2001, 2002 with a TV movie called Trial by Fire.
Yes, and then the show ended. I'm just double checking. I think, if I remember correctly, The show it ended. Its final episode was May 19th of 2001.
Yeah, then it came back. So then the actual finale was towards a bit after that in Trial by Fire.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I was only 10 years old when the show ended.
You just are making me feel even older.
But Dreamer, you have to remember, you're the second youngest here.
That is true. At least I'm not almost 40.
Oh, hang on. I think I need my ibuprofen for the day.
Or do you need your heating pad?
Yeah, I think I need a heating pad and some ibuprofen because age is getting to me.
I mean, you're not Walker.
No, but I'll need a walker.
So the television movie actually came out. Trial by Fire came out October 16th of 2005. So the show
2005.
itself ended. The show ended in 2001 in May.
So there's a 4-year gap then between the ending of Walker and then Trial by Fire, which is the actual ending.
Mm-hmm.
So my question to both Dreamer and the gamer here is: which Uncle Ray was your favorite? Were you one of the season 1 and pilot Uncle Ray, or the post season 2 Uncle Ray?
I'm not gonna lie, I forgot there was 2 actors for it.
I know, it's like one of those things that like you don't really realize until halfway through, I think like season 2 or 3. That's when you realize, oh, it's not the same person. I mean, I would honestly say that they each brought something different to the table.
Yeah.
Like the season 1, obviously on Hulu, because if you want to watch it, Lone Gamer, it's on Hulu.
Okay.
But they only have like 4 episodes of season 1 on Hulu. And
which
so
is like
it's like the pilot episode, which was two parts, and then it has 2 other episodes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's like, I would say that season 1 Uncle Ray was a little more like, I'm trying to like think like what's the right word. Like he was very much into, Native American culture, but so was, season 2 onward. Uncle Ray was also very much like in, Native American culture and, be, aware of your roots. But I felt like season 1, he had a little bit more of like a sense of humor.
Yeah. I mean, it's like in the pilot when, they've got that circus family living in the house, and, there's that guy that tries to teach Uncle Ray to juggle. It's like, oh, no, I can't do that.
Mm-hmm. And then you have Uncle Ray catches the guy in the lasso.
Yeah, but I think, that was I think Uncle Ray in the first season was a bit more of a man of action.
Mm-hmm.
He could, even though he was still the old uncle and he was the source of wisdom, he could still like hold his own. And
yes.
Whereas I feel like post season 2 Uncle Ray, he became just more a source of, wisdom. Native American wisdom.
Yes.
For Chuck.
Mm-hmm. And, you have now, I will have to say that the pilot episode showing all those angles of Trevette in a Speedo were a little...
I mean, the fact that he is literally wearing a bright neon green and black Speedo.
I thought it was pink.
And that it was a neon 2-tone Speedo from the 90s.
The late 80s to 90s.
It literally left nothing to the imagination.
It just looked like a pair of underwear.
and it wasn't. Well, no, it was very tight speedos. You know, the banana hammocks, or the budgie smugglers, as they were often nicknamed. I think it made it even worse is that there were several lingering low angles of Trevette during this scene of him in the pool.
I know, and I'm like, oh wow. They would not, if they were to remake Chuck Norris Walker, they would not be showing all those angles of Trevette in a Speedo. In fact, Trevette would not be wearing a Speedo. Trevette would be wearing the like little swimmer shorts, not the like swim trunks, but like the swim team, you know, they wear the like little swimmer shorts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He'd be wearing those instead of a Speedo, which they leave much. They do hide a lot of what you don't want to see.
Yeah, but the thing is, I think it was a bit worse that it took several, well, almost a minute after we've seen these lingering low shots for him to even consider putting on a towel and a t-shirt.
Oh, I know. I'm like, nobody, like Trevette, yes, you have nice abs, but I don't want to see your Speedo of the 90s.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and of course, two things with the actor of Trevette, Clarence Gilliard. Of course, so many of you might remember him from Top Gun as Sundown. And the second thing is they did lean into the whole Texas thing of him being an ex Dallas Cowboys player before he was retired due to injury.
Yes. And then they also talk about how he wanted to become a Texas Ranger. He said it was because he watched the show The Lone Ranger, and he wanted to basically be the Lone Ranger.
Well, and we've got our own lone gamer down there, so.
I know why I came up with the name. It just fit.
But I mean, I always found that kind of interesting that, you know, he watched, you know, The Lone Ranger, and that's how he wanted to become a Texas Ranger, was because of The Lone Ranger.
So there you go. You got your double reference. The obligatory Dallas Cowboys, because obviously the show is filmed and set in the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Which I would not want to be living there in the 90s.
Because, I mean, if you think about it, if you watch there and you do know that area well, you'll probably notice many landmarks.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've obviously got the old-fashioned Western influence in there.
Can we just take a minute to like talk about some of the clothes on Walker?
You mean Chuck Norris's often double denim attire?
You know, that still is fashionable.
Yeah.
Yeah, the double denim with the cowboy boots.
I mean, that is still, like, if you think about it, being from Texas, that is like the most iconic outfit. And I mean, my dad even wore, the brand is called Lucchese's. Yeah. And they're like these fancy, like bougie boots. Like they are super, like they're expensive. And my dad had a pair. Like my mom actually just found them in the back of their closet, and she got rid of them because she was like, "What do I need these for?" Like he's not gonna wear them anymore. So,
obviously,
but like, yeah, no, like back when you lived in Texas, like, you know, the men would wear, you know, the fancy Lucchese boots if you were like, you know, not working in a field. And if you were working on your ranch, you wore your like whatever brand you prefer boot.
Yeah, well, you know, and then if you think about it, you've got the other contrast there between Walker and Trevette. If you think about how Walker, he wears either the denim work shirt or the cotton work shirts with the Wranglers, because I mean, how many times do you see him outside of either a red, you know, button up shirt work shirt and a pair of Wranglers. I mean,
Or or like a
and then you've
plaid
got
shirt.
and then you've got Trevette, who's usually wearing a shirt and tie with khakis and the boots, or some kind of like suit.
A more modern day clothing style.
Yeah.
And then let's also talk about the whole, what Alex would wear to court.
Oh, the pantsuits.
Or just the skirt, the skirt, and then the nice blouse, and then the jacket with the ginormous 90s shoulder pads.
I'm sorry for getting a little bit political, but you got to make the references. The Hillary Clinton pantsuits that she popularized, especially in the 90s.
With the giant shoulder pads that, I asked my mom because she would have dressed very similarly in the 90s, and she was like, yeah, we had our shoulder pads to like define our shoulders. Like, Mom, no, those made you look like you had like quarterback shoulders. Like, is that what you wanted to look like, that you were like a quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys?
Well, Trevette knows that all too well.
And then, you had CD. CD wore like the white shirt with like khaki pants or like jeans.
Yeah, because he was, again, him and Walker were the old fashioned ranch cowboy types, aren't they? So obviously it makes sense for them to wear the sort of work shirts and the Wranglers with the cowboy boots.
And then Uncle Ray kind of dressed very similar to them too. Like, again, he wore the like your typical work shirt, the pants, and your boots.
And he also wore the jeans. He also had like a denim waistcoat in sometimes.
Yes. But I would always say that, like, the contrast between Walker and Trevette was like
night and day.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because Trevette, like, let's be honest, like, when he tried to put on the cowboy hat in the beginning, he looked like he was trying too hard. And then you have Walker, who he just slides on the cowboy hat, and it just looks like.
The other thing is, the other thing as well, the other contrast as well, I think you can have with them is when you look at Chuck's, Walker's attire. His is well worn. It's in some places it's dirty. That you can tell that. In some of the scenes where he's roundhouse kicking, those cowboy boots have had plenty of miles on the clock. That hat, you can see the hand marks. You can see where it's a bit sun bleached in places. And then you've got Trevette, who's got the pressed pure white shirt, the pristine white hat, the pressed trousers, the shiny cowboy boots, or the white sneakers.
Yes, or just like the dress shoes that were black. Your black dress shoes, because he doesn't always wear boots or tennis shoes. He sometimes wore your typical dress shoes of like the early to mid 90s. He didn't always wear the fancy Lucchese, as he called them. When in one episode he was talking about the lady that he was dating who was like into fashion, like sent him these like Lucchese boots. And he's like talking to Walker about these Lucchese boots, and Walker's just like, "We'll go take your Lucchese boots and go jump into this water and save this person." And I'm thinking, well, goodbye. However expensive those Lucchese boots are, they're never gonna be the same again.
Yeah. But it's because it's also that thing that Trevette is the city boy compared to Chuck's, Cordell being the country man.
Well, he also, was more mainstream because, he did play, for, the Cowboys. He did, do more than,
You get the point, though. He's always lived and worked inside the city of Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
He unlike Cordell, who's been outside all his life. He's worked with his hands, whether it was in the military, on the ranch, with the police.
Yep. And then you can even argue that Alex probably was something somewhere in the middle, because I always got the feeling that, like, yeah, Alex was more of like a city girl. She did ride horses. She did know how to like muck a stall. She did know how to, take care of a horse. She didn't know how to ride a horse. She knew, taking care of one, because in one episode, her horse gets killed and then it gets replaced.
She wasn't afraid to get her hands dirty.
No, that's why I always kind of feel like she wasn't totally like city, but she also was not total like I live on a ranch girl.
She was basically the gray middle line between Trevette and Walker.
Yes, and like I always kind of felt like that they were like the Three Musketeers, because if you look at episodes with them, she gets along with Trevette, she gets along with Cordell. Like obviously you can tell that Cordell has this thing for her, and you can tell that she probably has a thing for him, but they're both kind of bullheaded, and
they're both. It's like they're both waiting for each other to make the first move.
And like in one episode, I'm literally going, for the love of God, like just make out already. Like nobody is going to judge you if you make out in the middle of CDs. If anything, CD will make some like really snarky joke, and then he'll tell everybody, oh, look away, they're making out. And then that would be the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
Or knowing CD, there's probably a bet on.
Exactly.
On who would kiss.
And who makes the first move.
And I'm just like, just make out already. Like nobody is going to judge you, Walker, if you kiss Alex. And Alex, nobody is going to judge you if you make out with Walker. If anything, they're going to be going, well, finally, y'all like make a move.
Mm-hmm.
And then
you
it's
could
like...
I was going to say that sexual tension between Alex and Walker was so thick you could cut it with a knife.
Literally. And then it's like, you sit and you see the relationship between Trevette and Alex. It's, I always got the feeling it was like very platonic. It was very like, she looked at him like a brother. He looked at her like a sister.
Like a brother, sister, sibling.
Again, a found family, thing, because I always felt like Walker was more found family than your literal, like, blood family.
Yeah, the other thing as well was, I felt with Trevette and Alex, it was also the sort of business relationship as well, if you know what I mean. It was
they were very, like, professional.
They were both carrying the badge, so obviously they had that kind of mutual respect for each other.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I also feel like, again, that they kind of, when they were not on the clock, then they had that very like brother sister, we look out for each other type of relationship. And I mean, I don't know if you agree with that, Lone Gamer, but I just felt like watching some of those episodes, you're like, they talk to each other like siblings.
On and off the job, they acted like they were more brother and sister than anything else.
No, like I never like have thought that like Trevette had any feelings for Alex other than complete platonic friendship.
Yeah, I didn't get that vibe between them at all either.
I mean, maybe there was a slight twinge kind of thing, but 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 then it sort of moved on because you'd obviously got the Walker and Alex will they won't they story that lasted like 6 seasons.
I don't even remember when they finally get together, because if I remember correctly, they do finally like. I think it was like near the end.
It was like sort of late season 6 into season 7, and then obviously.
So I'd have to when I get to that point, I'll let y'all know, because I honestly think that they do.
Then obviously, like her final fate being left in the edge in Trial by Fire.
I mean, it's like you're sitting here, and honestly, I always just kind of felt like the whole, show, it kind of kept its continuity because, some shows that go on for a long time, especially in the 90s to like early 2000s, they would lose their continuity somewhere in there, and they would change like a backstory of a character, or they would, bring in somebody, and then they would automatically change somebody's backstory to like make it seem like this person had been there for years when
Yeah.
people knew that they hadn't. And they never changed Cordell's backstory. They never changed Alex's or Trevette's. They never messed with the continuity of the show. The show was probably one of the most pure.
Well, if you think about it, it is a sort of it's a sort of modern day pastiche in some regards to like old fashioned westerns of the 50s and 60s. Like Gunsmoke, Bonanza. Little House on the Prairie, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, tell me if I'm wrong, but from what I remember, for me, it felt like they didn't really repeat the same kind of story that would go on for episodes over and over and over again.
No, I don't remember.
Like modern day shows these days, they reuse the same plot or same story.
I mean, they might have had like a cartel. Like cartels are like fairly popular, but I mean that's like a like.
Yeah, it was very similar with the villains. Really, it was more a case of like, oh, there's drug cartels, oh, there's bank robbers, oh, there's
No, what I mean is, from what I remember, they don't rehash an old story like the same person gets shot up or beat up.
Mm-mm.
Oh no, they didn't like just remake the pilot in like season 5 just under a different name.
No, the only thing that they would do is it might be a different cartel, and then it'd be somebody was in charge of that cartel, but it would be a different person was in charge of that one cartel versus, 2 or 3 episodes earlier, the cartel was run by
this guy.
By some guy named, Joaquin or something, and then in the next episode it would be run by somebody named Johnny Appleseed, and then the next episode it's a bank robber by the name of
it'd be like, oh, this cartel's smuggling heroin into Dallas, this cartel's smuggling guns into Dallas,
this cartel is taking in methamphetamines into Dallas. So, I mean, they have different cartels, but you are right, I think, Lone Gamer. If I do remember correctly, they don't use the same
overall plot.
No, the same person, the same plot, the same, same person, different episode.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Unless it was one that was like part 1, part 2, maybe part 3, they would sometimes then it would, but that was like a continuous storyline. Once that storyline concluded, it's like you never saw the head of this cartel ever again, and then you never saw this bank robber ever again.
Well, usually you think it's because, if you think about it with Walker, it's because, that cartel was defeated and its members were put in jail.
Or they were, roundhouse kicked so hard that maybe they may not have lived.
But the general consensus is that, while some maybe henchmen were shot dead by Trevette or other Texas Rangers during the course of the case, the head honcho and his hired muscle were usually defeated and handed over to Alex for questioning and then obviously sent to jail.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, I will have to say that there was an episode that I watched recently that had aliens in it.
My next question is, why were Mulder and Scully not involved with this one?
They weren't called.
It's an X-File.
They weren't needed because Chuck Norris he can be the X-Files because he roundhouse kicks you in the face and it's.
You know what? We need to really remake this episode where it ends up with Walker Texas Ranger roundhouse kicking aliens to save a small town in rural
it wasn't really
Texas.
aliens, if I remember correctly. It was just like I don't even remember. It was the weirdest episode I've seen to date, and it had some of the biggest shoulder pads that I've seen to date.
I mean, the thing is,
I'm just picturing this now because I didn't know this episode existed. Walker roundhouse kicking aliens, and then what were the names of the X-File people?
Mulder and Scully.
They
Mulder
see
and Scully, yeah.
They see Walker roundhouse kicking aliens, and they're like, "We're out of here."
Like deuces.
See, the whole plot line is people are disappearing in this whole rural Texan town. Chuck Norris goes in to investigate, and it turns out that the aliens have been abducting people. So where was the scenes of Chuck Norris roundhouse kick, lying in wait to ambush the aliens?
Yeah.
Where was it? Where was the scene?
Find that episode to read the little.
Where was the scenes of Chuck Norris fighting some alien overlord on the flying saucer to free the captives?
I'm trying to find that one.
So Gamer, perhaps Independence Day might have been much shorter if we just sent Chuck Norris to roundhouse kick the aliens rather than use Will Smith.
Yeah.
Or what about Men in Black?
But yeah, you can obviously tell the idea of that episode was obviously meant to cash in on the success of the X-Files, because obviously that show was reaching its high point when that episode debuted.
I'm trying to see if I can find that episode. It's gonna drive me crazy if I don't.
But yeah, someone needs to remake this episode twice. One where Chuck Norris fights aliens, and the second time it needs a remake as an X-Files episode where Walker Texas Ranger and aids Mulder and Scully investigating a mysterious disappearance in Texas.
Yeah.
What would Mulder and Scully find? An alien laid on the ground that died of mysterious roundhouse kick related injuries.
Yeah.
How did he die? Why is it got? You just imagine why is this alien got boot prints in it? Is that a Lucchese boot print on this alien skull?
But if I do remember that they did have one that was very similar to that. Here it is. It was Walker seeks to disprove 40 years of UFO sightings in a small Texas town while also trying to find the missing father of a young girl. There you go. That was the alien one.
Yes, it was. That was the one. It's like this. People keep disappearing in the small Texan town. Chuck Norris is investigating. So where's the scene of Chuck Norris roundhouse kicking an alien in the face to save?
It didn't happen, and it was so lame because I was like, seriously, this would have made great television to have somebody dressed up like an old-fashioned alien, and they watch Walker literally roundhouse kick him to the face and then jump kick him to the face, because sometimes he does that little jump kick where he jump and aerial kicks him in the face.
Yeah.
And I'm always that would have made the most fantastic storyline ever. And then you could have called Mulder and Scully, and then they could have been why is there this like work boot print? Because Walker wouldn't have worn Lacazeys. Walker would have worn like Ariats or some kind of work boot. He might have worn a Lacaze to, court, but he would have worn some like work boot, on the job. And I'm like, where were Mulder and Scully, and why weren't they called to like and have them look at this alien that was like roundhouse kicked to death and have them be like, why is there this work boot, print on its face, like, and in its crotch area? Because he didn't just roundhouse kick you in the face. He also roundhouse kicked these guys in the crotch, and you're sitting there going, oh.
Yeah, but the thing is, the idea was it was supposed to be a kick in the gut, but obviously Chuck was aiming a little too low there. We know the intent was supposed to be a kick in the gut,
but it certainly was a little lower, and I'd always go, "Whoa, those people aren't having children ever again." Hope that you've gotten it all out of your system.
You know what? I still wish there was a scene at the end where Chuck hog ties the alien, takes it back to Dallas in the flatbed of his Chevrolet, and hands it over to Alex. And here we go. We found him. We've got him.
I'm trying to think. Another like really good episode was. Let me see if I can find it. It was a really good one. It was the one where they had to clear the name of Trevette, who has been accused in the disappearance of $5 million in counterfeit money.
Oh yeah, Trevette got accused of stealing,
and so they have to like prove that he didn't really steal anything. I mean, there were so many like good episodes. Like I'm trying to remember, there were like.
I did like the fact though in Walker we didn't just get the occasional external villains, that we did often get episodes where there was like interdepartmental corruption and bribery and stuff like that.
Oh, speaking of, you had a masked group consisting of spoiled rich boys have chosen to clean up the streets their way by beating up the homeless. But when one of their attacks results in a homicide, Walker goes undercover as a homeless man to catch them before they can destroy a homeless shelter and kill a witness to the crime.
No witnesses.
And I remember this one because one of the rich boys decides to betray all the other guys by going to Alex and saying, "Hey, I know who did it."
Yep.
And he basically gives up everybody. And I think if I remember correctly, she ended up getting him a plea deal because he basically
he gave them all the information needed
to get them behind bars. And you're literally sitting there going, and this is why we love you, Alex, because you are literally a badass in heels.
Yep. Because if you also think about it, there was also episodes that featured corrupt judges, corrupt police officers, corrupt city officials.
Try to find some more.
I forget what episode it was, but my favorite episode, I remember because of the ending. They were all drinking at the end of an episode, and they would each choose an actor or actress that would play them their character in a movie. I forget which one it was.
I think I know which one, but I can't remember what season that is. But I think I remember that.
Yep.
Here we go. There was one where CD's niece is kidnapped by her ex-boyfriend, who forces her into a string of bank robberies. Walker and CD's pursuit of the pair become further complicated when a radio show host, Tumbleweed Tom, unaware of what's really going on, offers a bounty on their Bonnie and Clyde style bank robberies, attracting the attention of people who want to collect this reward, even if it means killing them. So you even have enemies who are like close to the main characters.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, and I think
Ooh. And then the next one after that was the Rangers' investigation of the murder of an assistant high school football coach leads to their discovery of a blackmail plot towards the team caused by an illegal high stakes gambling ring, and they must end it before the state tournament game the high school team had been preparing for starts.
so. There you go. You have Chuck Norris roundhouse kicking gamblers.
I mean, that wouldn't be hard.
That would solve a lot of gambling issues these days,
Yeah,
in my
you just
opinion.
yeah,
You
you
got
just
gambling
call
issues?
Walker.
Call Chuck Norris. He'll roundhouse kick you until you stop.
I mean, I will say that like a lot of these episodes were just plain phenomenal. Like, you know,
Oh,
you're
yeah.
literally watching this, and I just remember watching it as a kid. And this is why when people argue, oh, like Walker is violent, like he has shooting and roundhouse kicking, and he's like, ooh, no. I'm sitting here going, I watched Walker as a child. And I like to think I turned out about as normal as like when I'll even argue that normal is such a relative term. And I like
Yeah.
to think I turned out perfectly fine after watching Walker roundhouse kick people to the face. Like, I mean, what do you think, Lone Gamer? Do you think you turned out fine watching Walker roundhouse kick people to the face?
Yeah, and I learned one thing. Don't do anything stupid. You get kicked in the head on the nether regions
You won't be
Exactly.
having any more children.
But yeah, I
anymore.
do. But I mean, the fact is that, like I said earlier, it was made with the spirit of those old Western TV shows
Mhm.
at its heart. The fact that there's family in it. The violent. But yes, there is violence, but it's not like it wasn't like uber violent. There was no people being multiple people being killed left, right, and center in some TV shows at the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't particularly gruesome, was it?
No.
And if you think about it as well, the murders the killings that did happen in the episode were usually to kickstart the plot. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It would be like,
No.
oh, like this gang of, these mass gang of, robbed a bank. Okay, so there's a cop, the cops get called. There's a bit of a shootout with the robbers and the police outside the bank, and one of the cops is gunned down, thus leading to, the investigation.
I'm trying to find when Walker and Alex got together.
Yep.
I'm trying to
So,
find that episode. Like, when was it? Because I can't remember, like, what season. Because I know that around season 3 is when you could tell that they, like,
the feelings were starting to be shown.
yes. And so I'm just trying to remember. Like, what? Because I'm trying to remember. So they get married, it says, at the end of the 7th season.
Yes.
So
Yeah, and the other thing as well, you also got to remember with Walker is at the end of every episode, the villains of the episode always get their comeuppance.
So it says in later seasons, he develops feelings for, dates, become engaged to, and ultimately marries the deputy district attorney, Alexandra Alex Cahill. In the series finale, the Walkers welcome their first child, daughter Angela, whose name is a possible nod to Norris's 1988 movie, Hero and the Terror. So they actually do end up getting married, having a child.
Yeah, who's born at the end of season 7.
Mm-hmm. And like I'd forgotten about that.
Yep.
Yeah, that
And then
completely flew over my head.
Like I knew that they ended up getting together. Like I knew that they did because
Yeah.
I just couldn't remember exactly.
and if you think about
when.
it's sort of like that payoff from like the old Western movies and TV shows, especially like the ones, you say your grandfather used to watch all the time, Dreamer.
Mm-hmm. And then actually, Alex in the 7th season, it says, following a near-death experience, Alex decides that her work as a deputy prosecutor is not enough to help others and founded a community center called Hope, Help Our People Excel, on the advice of Walker, where she helps children and young people in trouble. So she actually, on top of being, it sounds like a district attorney, she also helps those less fortunate. And, because Walker, you have to think about it, he always kind of had a soft spot for the children that he, would help.
Well, if you think about how a lot of the victims and the people that go to Walker for help were like, the kids, the less fortunate
Mm-hmm.
people, and he would do everything in his power to protect them. And often get justice on the people that wrong them.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think about it, he is, that's how he's also playing that old style Western sheriff.
So, I mean, you really sit and you think about, where do you think, if they hadn't canceled Walker, where do you think that they could have gone with the storyline of Walker, further along?
I think, this is my theory, I think Walker would have passed on the mantle to Trevette.
Mm-hmm.
Retired.
He'd have retired from being a Texas Ranger. I think he'd have fit comfortably into the CD role at the community center that he founded with.
Mm-hmm. In season 7, I think that they did it in season 7 or 8, like somewhere near the end, the latter seasons.
He'd have gone on. He'd have filled that CD role for for the Texas Rangers in the community center, right?
Mm-hmm.
He'd have passed his badge on to Trevette, and I think Trevette would have taken on his own partner.
I think so too.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I really think that probably.
Then my question is, do you think Walker would have, stepped out into the field, on times when his expertise or skills were needed, or if Trevette asked for help?
I really think that Walker might not have like retired. I feel like Walker might have like just moved up in the ranks of a Texas Ranger, and he would have taken more of like, not necessarily like a full-on desk job, but like, yes, more of like a leadership role. And he would have been more of like an advisor to Trevette, and like, told him, you trust your instincts, you trust yourself.
Because if you think about it,
then you don't trust modern technology because it can be manipulated. Where your gut,
well, it's
cannot
like I
be.
say. I think that's why I said I think he would have taken that CD role because if you think
Mhm.
about it, while CD did step into the field occasionally, his main role was to be a source of wisdom and a shoulder for Walker to lean on.
Mhm.
Because if you think about it, him, CD, and Walker could really talk about anything with each other, wouldn't they?
Yes.
And CD would have been the guy to tell Walker to what his opinion was on the matter
Mhm.
and advise him on the best course of action. But like you say, like the episode with CD's niece, that didn't stop him at his age from stepping out into the field every now and then.
Yes.
And that's why I think Walker would have stepped into that CD role.
Mhm.
Where he would have been an advisor to the Tech 2 Treved. He would have been an advisor to the kids at the community center. Because we all know if there's a kid in trouble going to Walker for help, he's gonna step in.
Okay, so I figured out which episodes Walker and Alex got married.
Mm-hmm.
So it was season 8. It was a 2-part episode, which they were super famous for the 2-part episodes. And it was episodes 24 and 25, which would have been Wedding Bells part 1 and 2, which was as Walker and Alex prepare to tie the knot. Walker finds out that they have both been targeted for death by an assassin. The wedding, which features a performance by country singer Tracy Lawrence, proceeds without incident. However, what happens en route to their honeymoon in Paris is a different story. Joan Jett plays an ex-CIA agent in this episode in syndication. This is a 2-part episode. However, it is 1 episode on the DVD release.
Yeah, I think they kind of turned it into a feature length.
I think that they did. And see, like, I remember that they ended up getting married, but I was like, did they get married in season 7 or was it season 8? Because we all know season 9 is the last season. And it's like you sit and you think to yourself, like, I always wondered, did they know that season 9 was going to be their last?
Well, I think a lot of things, at this point, the writing was kind of on the wall for Walker, Texas Ranger, I think, obviously, with a lot of shows, a lot of shows, they keep it going for as long as they can, but then again, it's also down at that point how the networks want to keep it going.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because if you also remember, at that sort of period on TV, networks were a lot more brutal in terms of keeping things
fresh
on the air or not. Because if they, if you think back then, if CBS or ABC or NBC, whatever it aired on back then, if they had the slightest whiff that it wasn't making any money and viewership was down, it was up for the chop.
Yeah, it was on CBS. I went and I checked. So CBS back in like the 90s to early 2000s would have been like, oh, you have one episode that has horrible ratings. If you don't fix it.
Yeah, the episode better. The next episode better, bring the ratings back, or you're in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, you really sit and you think. Do you think that they could show Walker, Texas Ranger, with Chuck Norris today?
No.
Yes, because I think in some ways, yes, because at the end of the day, I think in many ways the show is quite high on the morality scale. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
There's no sexual content. There's no heavy violence. There's no swearing. There's no drugs. There's no blood. There's no excessive violence. You know what
There's
I
a
mean?
little bit of blood when like somebody gets shot, but it's not like
Or Chuck wipes, gets a bit of a bloody nose or a bloody smear on his chin when he gets punched in the face. Yeah, but you get what I mean. It's not like, you know, someone gets shot and there's a massive blood splatter on the wall and somebody's laying face down in a pool of blood. You know what I mean?
yes.
If
And
someone gets you see a guy, a cop in a white shirt gets shot. There's like a red smear on the shirt where it looks like where he, maybe he spilled he had an accident with a strawberry donut, or he dropped his ketchup. Maybe his some of the ketchup on his cheeseburger or his hot dog leaked down his shirt.
now, why do you think it wouldn't be able to be shown today?
Basically, I don't think it would work in this day and age because a lot of modern day real life issues impact how people watch television.
Okay.
That's a
I
good
mean,
point.
Look at I'm drawing a blank on the name, but I'm pretty sure everybody will know. One guy who got killed by a cop or couple cops. I forget the name, but it changed how cop shows were running to the point where a couple of them were pulled straight off the air because of it.
I do remember this. So I feel like cop procedural shows they're harder to do now post-pandemic than they would have been
10, 20 years ago.
But then my counter argument to this, gamer, is how have shows like Blue Bloods and Law and Order stayed on the air as long as they have?
I think it's just how they're run. They had to like completely overhaul them. Where I feel like SVU has become, I don't want to say too political, but I feel like it does have its fair share of very politically driven episodes. Like, I don't know if you would agree with that.
I actually agree with that 100%.
And it's
because
sometimes
me and my grandma
watch
it, and we've noticed that ourselves.
And it's like you watch, like, we'll have to do one about that. But I mean, just to like point out, if you watch Law and Order SVU season 1 versus Law and Order SVU, whatever season we're on now, you can tell that there's like this huge
difference between how the show was run.
But you can almost see that in Walker too. Like if you think about season 1 of Walker versus season 9 of Walker, you think Walker started in 1993. It ended in 2001 post 9/11.
But you've also got to factor in is Walker was very politically neutral in terms of its content.
Yeah, I didn't let outside real world political views change what the show was about.
And I guess that's why I really enjoy watching it even now that my grandpa has passed away. It's like a very like nostalgic, like
nostalgia.
It's a very nostalgic driven thing because you're sitting here thinking, I watched this show when I was a kid. This show was like this big part of my childhood and like even like my like preteen teen years. And because my grandpa would always sit down and watch the reruns of Walker. It was just a thing. And it's like very nostalgic because you're sitting here thinking, this is a show that is not politically driven, that is not, based off of, what was the current political climate of the 90s in Dallas. And I mean, you're sitting here just thinking this show is literally about a Texas Ranger 2 Texas Rangers that we see all the time, and then we see CD some, and then a district attorney. And
and the thing is, if you also factor in, the villains of the series, there's no political agenda behind them. It's all what they're going to do to Dallas or what crimes
it's almost
they've
like
committed.
Pinky and the Brain. It's like, well, Pinky, like, well, what are we gonna get up to today? Like, we're gonna try to take over the world, and
You just sit there and think, you know what, I dread to think how much interest, how much insurance that bank on that corner is paying out every month, with the amount of high-tech bank robbers that seem to smash that place every month.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also think about how many pairs of pants does Walker go through with all of his roundhouse kicking to the face? Because those pants, like, I hate to say this, but in the 90s, like, for men's fashion, it was not like baggy jeans. It was like those like skin tight like jeans that like showed that Walker worked out and had like a nice butt and nice
but you've got
toned legs because he did not skip leg day. You knew that Cordell Walker did not skip leg day. And
you've got to remember,
like, how many pairs of pants did he rip in a day?
Well, you've got to factor in is those were old school Wrangler 501s. Those things are practically bomb proof. They would have literally protected Cordell Walker from bullets fired by the bank robbers. Given how tough they were.
And then I have this like very serious question: how many pairs of glasses of Trevette's were broken from season 1 to season 9?
Oh, true. But the thing is, I dread to think. What Trevette's laundry bill looked like, especially with having to wash those suits and press those pants.
He would have taken him to a dry cleaner. A dry cleaner would have done it for him. So you have to imagine what his dry cleaning bill looked like weekly, because they would have taken his suits weekly to the dry cleaners. Because my dad he would come home from being out of town in DC or like El Paso or something, and then he would get all of his stuff, take it to the dry cleaners, and then he would pick it up. And it would literally be, my dad would have it so starched that it could stand all on its own, because he didn't have time to do it. So he'd just say, do extra starch, please. And this thing could like literally stand on its own. I dread to think what my parents' dry cleaning bill.
I mean, the question is, do you think Alex dry cleaned her suits?
Yeah,
or did
those suits would have been dry clean only, would be my prediction.
So Alex and Trevette had a massive dry cleaning bill.
Yes, the only person who would not have had a massive dry cleaning bill would have been Cordell Walker. Because think about it, he only wore a suit if he went to court. The rest of the time, or if he was at a fancy, event, which didn't happen very often. And you think half the time he wore, plaid shirts and jeans.
He wore a shirt and he wore a work shirt of some description and Wrangler 501s.
And then his work boots.
So he's wearing Wranglers, he's wearing Levi's. Those jeans are indestructible. Let's be real here. He knows. He knows he's wearing hard. If you think about it, he's going to be wearing hard-wearing, tough clothing.
I mean, what do you think of some of the clothes that they wore, Gamer?
Oh man.
I mean, we can make fun of them. It's totally fine.
Yeah.
And trying to remember all the outfits back in the day.
Like, think about it. They wore like Alex wore a lot of like suits,
pantsuits,
and sometimes suits with skirts. And then she occasionally you'd see her wearing like jeans and like a blouse. Now that I would say would not have required dry cleaning, her like off the
But her
clock.
But her on the clock pantsuits, that's definitely
Her dry cleaning bill would be.
Well, think about it. She was a district attorney, though. Think about how much money she made.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, she probably could have. She probably could have paid for her dry cleaning bill and probably Trevette's.
I mean, Trevette, though, as a Texas Ranger, he probably made a pretty penny too.
And he was probably still, making money from the NFL in terms of royalties and.
Don't know, but I mean, you think about the only person who would not have had a massive dry cleaning bill would be
Walker
Cordell
himself.
Walker.
Yeah, and you think about how little, and I'm not trying to say this in a negative way, how little care those work shirts and jeans actually require.
You literally just throw them in the wash, throw them in the dry. You do Walker would have done a quick iron of them and hung them up and said, "We're done."
Yeah, those jeans are going in the washing machine. He's hanging them up. They are done. They're drying outside.
And then he might have done a quick iron on those too.
Yes.
Because some of those had like a super pressed, like they looked very,
very, very clean.
Oh yeah, like not like when you think about our jeans.
Yeah.
Our jeans really look like we just pulled them out of the drawer and said, "Well, here we go today."
And even the work boots he wore, they'd have literally probably just had a boot white, wet white leather run over them to clean them up, and like, okay, job's a good one.
Yep, we're ready to roundhouse kick some more bad guys in the face. Like, let's go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Whereas you can imagine Trevette sort of sat there on it, on his night off, literally polishing the toe caps of his dress shoes to perfection.
Now, here's a good question for y'all. Which person would you have hung out with more? Would you have hung out with Trevette more? Or would you have hung out with Alex more? Or would you have hung out with Walker more? Because I already know who I would have.
You'd have been with Alex, I'm guessing?
Oh, yeah. We would have been like sitting there talking about the horrendousness of the shoulder pads. And the pantyhose.
I'm sure Trevette's the kind of guy that will probably have some cool gadgets. Or showing off what he can do with his laptop.
So you'd be out with Trevette?
Hey, the guy's probably also come on, you also got to think, gamer. He's a technology whiz. He's probably got a Super Nintendo at his place.
Somewhere, yeah.
So what about you, gamer? Who would you have hung out with?
Oh. I probably honestly would have to agree with Senior Woody here. I'd probably hang out with Trevette as well.
Now, here's the final question that we have. With Trial by Fire, we see at the end where Alex gets shot. Do we think that she lives or that she dies?
I mean, I remember watching Trial by Fire. The implication is sort of strong that she sadly, was killed at the end of the movie.
See, I think that she might have pulled through. Because it kind of leaves it open-ended.
Because if you think about it, she was shot in the chest. She was laid on the floor as the camera pans out.
But she still could have survived.
Yeah, but you can tell that the implication was they were trying to imply that she died on the floor of the courthouse.
See, I think she still would have lived.
Okay.
Because, I mean, if you think about it, how many times has she been shot in that courthouse?
Well,
in
true.
the same place.
Yeah.
I mean, I still think that she would have lived because they would have had an ambulance like right there waiting because they knew that Alex was in the courthouse that day. So hey, let's make sure we have IMSA on standby to take her to the hospital.
Well, the day the day she took to wearing a bulletproof vest underneath her blouse. From that day forward.
So, I mean, I feel like she would have lived because think about it. I mean, if they initially wanted to do another movie, they just didn't have the funding to do it. And you can't really do Walker, Texas Ranger without Alex.
Unless it was going to be a revenge movie.
But I can't see them doing a revenge movie. He would have had his revenge while Alex was recovering in the hospital.
Yeah.
And he had shot all those mofos saying, "You went after my woman? Goodbye." Or he would have gotten Trevette to find some kind of bomb or something to just...
Imagine being the assassin that reports back, yeah, I've killed Chuck Norris's wife.
Or I think I've killed his wife, because think about it. He would have made them think that they killed her, but they didn't kill her. Really, she's safely in the hospital recovering with 50 other Texas Rangers and police force outside of her room where nobody could have gotten through to that. Literally, nobody would have gotten through that. And they would have thought that they got his wife when really they did not. And then you have Chuck Norris coming in, double fisting, some pistols and revolvers and saying well, goodbye, you're gonna meet your maker. And then they're thinking, oh, he's mad because we killed his wife, when really he's thinking, as he's shooting all of them, he's saying, well, actually she's alive and you are dead. And he would have just annihilated the entire cartel.
Yeah. I think it would have been an interesting, character development. And I think it also would have been what would have happened if, what would have been going on with the actress who did play Alex, whether she wanted to have come back, whether she wanted more money, so they used the...
I think she would have come back. Honestly, I always got the feeling that she genuinely enjoyed being Alex.
So, they went for the shooting story and leaving it on that open-ended story. So
did she live? Did she die?
So that way they've basically got a definitive point then, depending on what the actress was going to say, whether she wanted to come back, whether she didn't, whether CBS was going to pay her bill.
Or if they wanted to even make another movie.
Well, they wanted to make one, obviously, but CBS was like, nah. But what I'm saying is, if CBS had said, yes, we'll make Trial by Fire 2, right?
I think she would have come back.
If she said, no, I don't want to come back, or I can't come back because I've got this other project, at least then they can take...
They could have said, hey, we have this way of ending her storyline.
So they can say, right, she's not coming back. So she's been shot. She died. She died in the hospital or on the way to the hospital. We've had the funeral.
Mm-hmm. Or they just have a closed casket.
You know what I mean? She's been shot. Chuck Norris tried to get her to the hospital, but he was too late.
I mean, I honestly feel like that she probably would have come back if they'd done a Trial by Fire 2. And they would have had her, again, 50 Texas Rangers outside her hotel, her hospital room, and an entire police force of Dallas police officers, guns blazing.
Well, it would have just been a case of the cartel realized, wait, you shot Chuck Norris's wife? You do realize what you've done, right? You do realize We've now gotten an
That's
angry.
all, you son of a gun.
Yeah. You do
And
realize
then you
you've now.
have then you have Cordell Walker coming in, with his hat on and his, double denim, and he's got like a revolver in each hand, and he's just like looking at them like,
they're like, you do realize all you've done is anger Chuck Norris. We're all dead.
and
There
then
is no stopping him.
shoots them all.
There is no stopping him.
But yeah, I think overall, I always kind of feel like Walker, I don't know if y'all agree, it's just like a nostalgia thing. It's literally this like total nostalgia thing. And you're literally sitting here like, I wish that they would make television like this again, that was not political, that was not at all politically driven, that was genuine, good acting, good television, wholesome. And granted, there was some shooting and there was some like roundhouse kicking, and you can sometimes argue how many times did Chuck Norris roundhouse kick somebody in an episode. But I mean, overall, it was a literal like it was a gem to watch.
Was it cheesy at times? Yes. Was it full of high octane martial arts action? Yes.
But it worked for that show in that era.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's almost like I wish you could do that again with more television, because I sometimes feel like I don't want to watch new television shows because they do just get very politically heavy. And in, the current climate, you're sitting here just like, I just want to watch something and genuinely disconnect.
We want entertainment
from the world.
And it's like, I just want to be entertained. If I want to know what is happening in Dallas, Texas today, I can just turn on social media and find out.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I want to mention is in the UK, Walker Texas Ranger aired on weekends on Channel 5, and it was paired with another martial arts cop show. You two might have heard this one. You might not have done, but does anyone here remember Martial Law?
I don't think so.
I vaguely remember the name of that show.
It sounds familiar, but I don't remember.
It was a cop show featuring former Jackie Chan co-star Sammo Hung.
It's like I can see it, but I can't like.
You can't picture it.
Yeah, probably because I need to like refresh.
Yeah, I'd probably have to do the same.
Martial Law, again, it was a very similar premise to Walker Texas Ranger, but it was more a case of you have Sammo Hung playing a cop from China working for an American police department as a detective, and you have the sort of fish out of water aspect to it.
I mean, I just kind of wish that there was a way to like make a show like Walker work again in today's day and age. Well, I almost sometimes feel like it's what.
They did try and make it work today, and I know we're definitely going to do an episode on it eventually, is obviously the Jared Padalecki reboot of Walker Texas Ranger, where it was a more modern, dramatic take.
And I know it was in Austin versus...
rather than
Dallas.
rather than being a Vietnam veteran with a decorated career under his belt, Jared Padalecki's Walker is more a deep cover agent that's been off the grid for several years, and now he's finally resurfaced.
And if I remember correctly, his wife was murdered, and he's taking care of their 2 children.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they said that her name was Alex as well.
Yeah.
I think. And because I watched a little bit of it, but then I was just kind of like, Like
I think
Walker, like I hate to say, I mean, Jared Jared did a great job, like with what he was handed. Like
I mean, Jared is a really good actor. I mean, he's been in loads of stuff. I mean, a lot of people would know Jared, most of all from Supernatural.
yes,
Mhm.
Right? Was he?
and also
He, he was
most
Dean
people.
Winchester, wasn't he?
No, he was Sam.
Everyone remembers his role as Sam Winchester in Supernatural, and a character that we all love.
We also would know him. He played in Gilmore Girls as Dean Forrester, who was Rory's first boyfriend.
So technically, he's played both Sam and Dean.
He's played a
There you
Sam and a
go.
Dean, but I mean, all I have to say is that he, from what I remember of the show, he did a relatively good job with what he was handed.
Yeah.
And
I mean, he's
but when you think about, like, I hate to say this, and like nothing against Jared, like absolutely nothing. But I don't know about you guys, but when I think about Walker, Texas Ranger, I think about Chuck Norris, not
Mhm.
not Jared. But
I
also, you
think
have to
it's
think
also,
Walker had such a huge impact on
yeah,
our childhood.
yeah. I think it's also the fact that whereas Walker from the '90s was a very bright, it was lighthearted,
Mhm.
it was moral, it was pure. Let's be real. It was family friendly. Walker of 2023 was much darker. It was more dramatic.
Mhm.
And in some cases, I think Walker in that regard didn't work or didn't have the same impact.
Mhm.
Where you have Cordell Walker being this sort of dark, gritty cop.
Mhm.
Yes. Now, I will say something interesting that y'all may not have known about Jared Padalecki is he's actually from San Antonio.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, I did remember reading a while back. He actually is from Texas.
Yes. So, I mean, you think it's kind of interesting. See, San Antonio is about an hour and a half ish from Austin. So, you think it's kind of interesting. They move Walker from being set in the Dallas Fort Worth area to being set in the Austin area.
So then you're sort of flipping it on its head, is because if you think about it, Walker of '90s was the old fashioned cowboy in the city,
Mm-hmm.
whereas you have the new Walker being the city cop moving to the country.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you think about it, Austin is definitely a lot more rural than Dallas.
You could argue though that Austin is like, it's not really rural. It's it's a city. It's very as somebody who grew up in that area as well. Like Austin was,
Hmm.
it's not as big of a city as Dallas, like that Dallas Fort Worth area, but it's also a college town too. You have the University of Texas, go Longhorns if that's what you like. And
Yeah.
it's like a very big football town, like it's a very big college town. And I mean, but it is, a city. I mean, they do
Hmm.
have some suburbs, that are, some ruraler parts of, that are just outside of Austin or like, on the edge of it. But it is their slogan is keep Austin weird.
Okay.
It's kind of like an artsy fartsy place.
Yeah.
The best way to describe it, again, as somebody who,
Whereas Dallas is the sort of bustling modern metropolis.
yes, it's Dallas. It's like the Dallas DFW area because it's Dallas Fort Worth. You have it's like it's a big city. I mean, it literally, that highway system is so confusing. I still have nightmares driving through it.
And
And one wrong move, you're in trouble.
And the thing is, you also have the Metroplex area as well.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, you think about the Walker of Jared Padalecki, and then the Walker of Chuck Norris. It's just a different. They had their own take on it.
Yeah, but
Different
what they
era,
were,
different vibes.
yeah,
I
I
don't
think
think it was a bad thing.
No, it's
but
just
yeah, I do remember seeing some of the stuff from for some of the trailers because I've yet to find a place to actually watch them here in the UK. I mean, I'll probably find them on like Amazon or something.
Because it ended just last year in May of 2024. So it
Wasn't it?
started airing in 2021.
Wasn't it canned after 4 seasons, or did it actually end?
That's what I'm trying to. It was
it was
canceled.
canceled.
They canned it.
Yep, they canceled it. The fourth season premiered on April 3rd, 2024. And then in May 2024, the season was canceled after 4 seasons. Its final episode aired on June 26th of 2024.
I'm presuming it's the same issue that plagued the original Walker. Is obviously ratings fell down.
Ratings.
Ratings. I mean, and unfortunately, in this day and age, they're also competing with. So you're watching it on live television, but then they would show it the next day. Because
Well,
CBS.
yeah. You've also got to factor in stuff like a lot of more people DVR now than they did years ago.
Or they don't even have cable or DVR at all, and they rely on streaming services.
Yeah, but that's the next part. You got people who DVR things and watch things a couple of days later, and then people who stream it direct through CBS All Access.
Mm-hmm.
And watch it on the train ride to work or whatever.
Yes. But I mean, overall, I think we should probably do a rewatch of the Jared Padalecki, Walker. And then that way we can easily, better compare contrast the two. Because, I mean,
yeah,
they were very different.
Yeah, I actually, it's not a rewatch for me. It's actually watching the series to begin with because the only thing I ever remember watching was like trailers. But like I said, I'm fairly sure I can actually, find episodes somewhere on the internet or on streaming services these days.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's on streaming these days. If they want people to rewatch it, it's there.
Yeah.
But overall, I mean, I would say Walker Texas Ranger. I think the longevity of it, being passed down to the next generation, especially if, like you think about Little Dreamer, when he watched it actually. And he would say things like, Walker, okay. Walker, okay. And I'm sitting here like, yes, sweetheart. Like, Walker is fine. Like, he just roundhouse kicked somebody to the face. He's fine.
He didn't get traumatized by Trevette and a Speedo, did he?
We didn't show him that episode.
Good. He does not need to see those lingering several second shots of Trevette.
I don't even need to see those again. The one time I rewatched that was enough until I get like Alzheimer's or something and I've forgotten. But it won't matter because when I go to bed, I won't remember.
Mm-hmm. I just think, what were they thinking when they actually did the several second long lingering low shots?
They weren't thinking.
Or was this something to be like, well, we all know we need something for the housewives to have a look at?
I don't know. I think a lot of it too is you have to think about filming in the early 90s versus filming today, 2025. They would literally, in 2025, they'd be zooming in to the crotch shot. Where
no, you can't make this excuse on the fact that somebody angled the camera through the handlebar of the swimming pool steps.
But I'm just saying,
aimed the aimed the camera that direction at that and held that shot for several seconds. That was intentional. Someone did this.
We'll be thankful that it wasn't filmed today, because they would have zoomed in and said, well, let's zoom in on his crotch, people.
Look, this
Give
is
those
what we want.
housewives a show. They would have given him a skimpier Speedo, too. Like, let's
Oh,
be
no.
real. They
I was gonna
"We
say,
need more of a like more banana hammocky, banana hammock. So
we need
here you go, Trevette."
we need more. We need more of an outline here. We need to see more of the bulge.
So be thankful that it was filmed in 1993, where the worst that we see are those terrible camera angles that are deliberately shot through the pool ladder. Where today we would have literally had them zooming in on a thinner banana hammock, and we would have been like scarred for life, Cloroxing our eyeballs.
But the whole point is the fact that we see his semi-naked body on screen for, I just had a good 30 seconds plus before he decides to walk over to the, to the whatever it was where his belongings were, the bleachers. He walks over to the bleachers, picks up a towel to towel himself off, and then put a shirt on.
My question is to you, Woody. Why were you staring for that long?
It's not my fault. This is how long the scene actually lasts.
He had envy. He wants to look like Trevette.
I couldn't look like that now. Maybe 20.
Because you eat too many, cheese fries. If you'd lay off the cheese fries and do some cardio and some leg day, I think you'd be fine.
It's like,
and don't forget arm day. You have to do arm day too.
Yeah. I have to do a lot of days, and I just don't have the time.
But I'm with you. Like, you could have looked away.
I just... someone... But it's the fact that someone did this on purpose, and this scene lasts... There was a distract. I was trying to work out the plot points that CD.
No, you were going
Walker and
Trevette in a Speedo.
No. Look, I was trying to work out what Walker and Trevette were talking about, but they were distracting me. I was like, come on,
That was distracting you.
Trevette, please put some pants on and we'll continue the conversation, please.
But imagine his shorts would have been shorter than the Speedo.
Oh my god. Put a shirt on, put some pants on, and we'll continue this conversation.
But I think overall, it's a good nostalgic show that you can rewatch, and you still get that like adrenaline rush of going, okay, and how many times is Trevette gonna get in trouble for trying to use newfangled technology? How many times is Walker going to roundhouse kick and then jump, aerial kick somebody in the face and crotch? And how many times are we going to sit there and go, okay, Alex and, Cordell, just make out already. Like, it's okay. We're not going to judge you if you, steam up the mirror.
Just hurry up and get it on.
Just do it.
I mean, if you also think about Walker in this way, it was also aimed at, the older audience, the ones who grew up watching older Westerns. Because if you think about it, a lot of the guest stars and a lot of the actors are former Western actors.
True.
From like the 40s and 50s.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not disagreeing.
So, that's why, you do have that sort of bonanza feeling, the whole Gunsmoke feeling.
So, but my question is this, gamer, would you want to come back for another week?
Oh, without a shadow of a fork and doubt.
Okay.
Uh,
Because, I mean, you
well-
never know what we could talk about next week.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and I think though we do need to remind all of you, not just the ones in the group, the ones watching, the eyes of the ranger are upon you.
The eyes of the ranger are upon you.
Yeah, so watch what you do, behave yourself, especially in Dallas Fort Worth.
Don't take off Chuck Norris.
And lay off the
Exactly.
Speedos.
And put pants on, as Woody would say.
And definitely don't break any laws, no matter how minor. No matter how minor. We all know it's very tempting to jaywalk. No, the Rangers are watching you. Just remember that. And on that note, I think it's safe to say thank you very much for joining us after 3 months. I've been your host, Woody.
I've been Dreamer Girl.
I'm the lone gamer.
And thank you very much for listening, and good night.
Bye-bye.
Exit stage left.
And